Psychosocial dimensions are obviously present whenever there has been a history of violence, grievances, which of course often results in human dramas on a more or less large scale. And mediators or mediation participants, even if they're not lead mediators, have probably been impacted by the conflict. Many may have experienced loss in their families, imprisonment, personal attacks, and what have you, and they carry this baggage. So they might be at the table to negotiate, to represent a cause for objectives, but one cannot really separate the human from the political in these instances. So what happens when you dismiss this? And I've seen it at work in a number of processes where, particularly groups claiming self-determination have tried to rehash the history that brought them to prefer some sort of autonomy, sometimes even outright independence, over staying within the state to which they belong. So what happens when their claims are ignored are two things. The first is that this clearly impacts the capacity to dialogue, because even if it's not intended to, it is perceived as not being respectful of or not giving enough seriousness to those claims. The other thing that also happens very often is that it leads these groups to adopt more radical positions, because they feel like they're in a situation where instead of trying to come to a common objective or some sort of resolution, they're basically in a wrestling contest over the validity of claims. Now, it is true, as some mediators stress, that there is a danger of ending up being bogged down in history. But I think that there needs to be some sort of balance in which you use history, you allow people to really build from their experiences, but you use them as a prompt to think about what a better future would be for them and for the generations that follow. And I do think that if we do not do this as mediators or mediation experts, we risk actually having parties at the table that might even end up with a negotiated settlement, but in which they do not believe, as a result of which they will not expend any effort to sell this settlement to their populations. And the one thing we know is that without local ownership, settlements rarely survive. So what do I take from this as a mediation practitioner? I take from this a couple of things. First of all, the fact that my colleagues and I all need to have the emotional intelligence to find a way to allow these claims to be expressed, to empathize without necessarily sympathizing, because the border between the two is tricky, and it's a matter of maintaining some sort of impartiality between the parties. So empathizing but not sympathizing, because of course these experiences have marked people, they have affected them, they have impacted their outlook, but also to develop tactics, strategies, tools, so that we don't end up mired in history, and we use history maybe as a way of visioning futures that would be better for all parties involved. It's not an easy proposition. It also means probably recognizing that sometimes there needs to be outsiders, not just necessarily the people in and around the table, but outsiders providing the psychosocial support that is needed by people in these processes, because the processes are intense. They will often make people relive traumatic experience in their lives. And that is something that we know, but we don't know how to really take on board, at least not satisfactorily until now.